Hey there, friends. Welcome back to Burning Brightly. I cannot wait to talk to you about a little concept that has been in my brain for a little while, and it is the concept of our worth versus our works. Or in other words, what we are worth and what we actually do with our time and effort. Okay? So, this is one concept that actually beautifully applies to both business and faith, which I love when there's that overlap. Truth is just truth, and it applies in so many ways. So, as believers, we know that we are all children of God, right? It means that we are divine beings. We have this worth that can't be touched. We have this eternal soul that will never die. It's this beautiful concept when you think about it. And we are special in so many ways. So it's no wonder that many of Satan's temptations today focus on distracting us from this divine value. He could just have us be confused or a little overwhelmed or feel like garbage about ourselves. Then he can get us to believe that we are not worthy and that we have to earn our worth. And then he's won because we're these incredible eternal creatures that now doubt our own worth. Okay. So anytime we begin something new, I've noticed this, anytime we begin something new, whether we enter a new relationship, we get married or something, we become parents for the first time, we have a new job or a new business or anything that is new, we have to remind ourselves of our eternal value, that it is whole and impossible to diminish. So why do we need this reminder? Well, basically because anytime we start something new, we mess up. Surprise, surprise, we're human beings. That is the point, right? Is we're here to try and to screw up and to stumble and fall and to learn and get back up again. So even in areas where we have many, many years of experience, like business or relationships, parenting, for example, this is still true. We still mess up on the daily. And so if we do not remind ourselves that our worth is untouchable, we might be willing to give up and feel really, really crummy about ourselves. So when we make mistakes, it's important to realize that our brain panics because it thinks that something has gone wrong and it tries to tell us that there is something wrong with us often. If that's not the case, then often we blame other people, right? We're just looking for some way to relieve some of that discomfort that we're feeling because we made a mistake. So very often it's things like, oh, I'm such a dummy, or I screwed up again, or I'm not meant for this, or, I'll never be good at this. We kind of have this really doubtful, poisonous mental spiral we can go down, which is why I love to coach on business mindset, because if our mind is not in a good place, we will never be able to accomplish anything. So I really love this analogy of $100 bill. Okay, think about a $100 bill and all the things you can buy with it. Maybe not as much as 20 years ago, but you can still buy quite a bit. What happens if that bill gets wrinkled up? Is it still worth $100? Yeah, of course. What if it gets dog-eared, or what if it gets lit on fire and not consumed? Like there's still some left. What if it gets torn in half? Did you know that mutilated bills can be replaced? You can take it to your bank and just get a brand new one. Why? Because that $100 bill is always worth $100, even if it is severely damaged. So I try to think of myself and also my other fellow humans in the same way. Regardless of what we've experienced or what we've been subject to or actions we've performed that have damaged us in some way, it doesn't devalue our worth. So things like mental issues that we have struggled with, or maybe we've been mentally abused or emotionally abused, maybe spiritually we're kind of beaten down and feel a little bit damaged, we're still whole inside. Isn't that a beautiful concept? Our worth has not diminished, nor can it ever be. We are still worth that $100. Although I would argue we're worth a lot more than 100, but $100 bills, something we could all relate to, right? We've all probably held a $100 bill and thought, wow, this is worth something, even if it gets damaged in some way. To explore this analogy a little bit further, think, for example, of a young child with a serious genetic problem. Maybe they were born with Down syndrome or some other genetic anomaly where their body and mind are obviously not in perfect working order. Does that mean that this beautiful human being is not worthy of life? Has somehow some diminished worth? No, of course not. Although, sadly, some people might think so. Every human being has this intrinsic worth. It's so beautiful. It doesn't matter what we've done or what has been done to us, or even how imperfectly we came to earth. Even in a broken body or a broken mind, we still have that intrinsic worth. It's so fantastic to think about. And it's important that we as believers remember that knowledge and share it with others, because it's not common knowledge. Not everyone believes that every life has that much intrinsic value and that all of our worth is whole and divine. Nothing we do or don't do, or nothing that is done to us, can damage that worth. So back to business for a second. As I work on my business, this is vital to remember. Why? Because I mess up. If a project fails or a customer or a client hates me, or if I even lose thousands of dollars and drive our family into bankruptcy, my worth is still not diminished. I am still worthy and eternally valuable no matter what I do. Doesn't that just take off some of the pressure? All of a sudden, we're thinking, oh, well, I'm free to try whatever I want then because my value is not diminished, even if I do something that seems dumb or seems like a big mistake. That is par for the course. It's really, really an incredible gift that we can hang out here on earth. We can try new stuff. We can mess it up day in and day out, and we never make ourselves less worthy of God's love. Pretty incredible. And I think a truth that the entire world desperately needs at this point. Another reason why it's so critical to remember this worth is because if we truly understood our eternal and unchanging worth, don't you think we would want to change our works to reflect that? So my first point was that our works cannot diminish our worth. It stays unchanging and eternal and incredible no matter what we do. But don't you think if we understand our worth, we want our works to kind of rise up to meet it, right? Think about how royalty is taught to behave. You've probably seen the tabloids of the British royal family and how they dress and how they comport themselves, what's appropriate and what's not appropriate in the public eye, because they are held to a very high standard. What if we felt the same way? What if we realized that our eternal worth as children of God is so high that we want our works to reflect that? And so we purposely look at our actions and try to match that eternal, amazing value. Pretty cool concept. And yes, this applies to our business as well. What kind of a business owner do you want to be? Do you want to be the kind that's just constantly trying to get ahead no matter what cost? No matter who you hurt in the way? I don't think so. I want to be a business owner that is full of integrity and value. And if I have done something wrong or someone feels slighted in some way, that I will stand up and make amends and make it right for that person. So matching our works to that worth is such a powerful concept. In fact, I would say that this is why Christians and many other devout believers live such extraordinary, beautiful lives. They do so not because someone's forcing them to or because they have these commandments they have to follow. They do so because they know their worth and they want their works to reflect that. The same way that children who are raised by parents who go to college tend to be kids who go to college. Kids who are raised by parents who wake up on a bender every morning and don't take care of their children often reflect those same values and actions when they grow up because it's what they think they are worth. A child who sees a parent treat themselves with high worth also believes that they have high value. So interesting, right? Another great reason that we need to really embody this concept and teach it to our children so they too can grow up knowing their eternal, unending, impossible to diminish worth. At this point, it is important to remember that our works still matter, not just so that they measure up to our worth, but because that's one of the points of earth life. We're here not so that we can indulge in this wild free-for-all and we're just running around like it's Lord of the Flies. We're here to be tested and tried and figure out how to perform works that match up to that worth, right? So God has given us some basic guidelines in order to create and maintain that peace and harmony that He has promised us and to give us our best chance at joy. God wants us to be happy. We want to be happy. Best way to do that? Follow His guidelines for living here on earth. Things like treating each other with love, with charity, caring for those who can't care for themselves, staying morally clean, and more. All the commandments and things that our faith leaders have taught us will bring our works in keeping with that divine value that we know about now and will bring us the greatest happiness. Now, here's a word of caution. Satan can use our knowledge of our eternal value to tempt us to ignore God's commandments. How? Well, through popular slogans like, "You are perfect exactly the way you are." Now, I understand that a slogan like this has really good intentions, trying to teach people that they don't need to change themselves in order to be loved. Absolutely true. We have that intrinsic value no matter what we do. That's exactly what we started this episode with. However, what that doesn't mean is that we never have to make any changes or improvements because, hey, that coffee mug slogan said I was perfect just the way I am. Not quite. We have this eternal, undiminishing worth, but we are imperfect and we always will be. Our value is immense and cannot be diminished. But the point is that we come here imperfectly in order to try to measure up, in order to try to act as God would have us do. And it's hard. Like, again, that's the whole point of coaching, is to figure out how to manage our minds so that our works can measure up to the kind of person that we know we are inside. So back to business. How does this apply? Number one, when you mess up, when you fail, when customers and clients complain, understand that has nothing to do with who you truly are. It is just a project. It's just an experiment, like we talked about last week, right? It's just something to try to see how it works and see how we want to change things in the future to get the results we're looking for. Secondly, to be an example of what is possible and what is good and beautiful in the world. I have been so inspired by other women and men of faith who have built businesses because they do so with an integrity and a joy and a love of life that is just fun to watch and is just so inspiring to witness. So we can do the same for other people. We can show them that building a business does not mean cheating people. It doesn't mean pushing to get ahead. It doesn't mean ignoring and neglecting your family. It doesn't mean leaving your faith traditions. You can still be a beautiful believer in God with this eternal worth that can never be diminished, and a successful business owner who rides the highs and lows of business, rides that roller coaster, and still comes out on top because they know that those mistakes do not diminish their worth. Those highs and lows are all part of the deal, and it's a beautiful, beautiful ride if we can look at it from the right perspective. So as I build my business, I try to regularly ask God how I can get my works more in keeping with that divine potential. And I know He has a plan for me. I know He has led me into business in order for me to do good, put more good and beautiful value out into the world. So I ask Him for help, and then I get busy and I watch Him do His work through me. It's a beautiful, beautiful experience. Okay, friends, we'll talk to you next week.